Hello, all you RAG podcast listeners. A little note from me before today's episode to alert you to the first ever RAG podcast live webinar. Hosted next week, Monday, the 20th of April at 2 p.m. I'm pulling together some pretty big names to talk all about why marketing should be the number one on the agenda for recruitment businesses everywhere to survive and thrive COVID-19. To do this, I'm pulling together Mark Gaisford, the founder of Red Sprout, the guy who was on my podcast season 2 and gets arguably the most engagement in the whole recruitment sector globally on his brand right now. We've got Billy Humphries, who's the marketing manager at MRL Consulting Group, the guy behind the brand that went to the 4-day week and went viral and was on BBC News and all sorts. And Leo Harrison, a guy you might not have heard of, but actually unbelievable name. Leo was the COO of Oliver Agency, one of the world's largest and most recognized advertising agencies, and has since moved into our world as a recruitment business. And he's launched a company called Chapter 2, which is a talent advertising business. I've pulled these three together because I think they've got a blend of skills from recruitment and advertising and traditional marketing, plus me. And we're going to talk all about why recruitment businesses need marketing right now. I mean, the world has changed. Let's be frank. The last 6 weeks has ripped through recruitment businesses everywhere. So many people have been furloughed, so many people have been let go. And what we've seen is recruitment businesses have shrank. Most agencies now have an owner and they've got a team, a very small select team of people that together have got the task of fighting this and making money throughout this process. And what that means is there's no room for anything else other than sales and marketing. And if you've just spent the last 20 years operating in a very similar one-dimensional way with phone calls and meetings, then now is the time more than ever that you need to start looking at your brand and how you can build audiences, connect people online and add significant value. So when the bounce comes, you're going to be one of the agencies that people remember and want to use and you can capitalize. So look, most episodes of the RAG Report are about me talking to other people and getting their views on things. This is my opportunity to talk about what I care about, which is marketing, right? So I want to help every single one of you. So you can register via the link attached to this post, to this episode. It's via Eventbrite. Click through there, register. It's free. I don't think we can fill capacity, so you can all get on there. And I'm really looking for everyone who listens to this podcast every single day to join me on Monday the 20th. This is the first of a bi-weekly series. So every 2 weeks, I'm going to launch a live webinar. It's going to be a consistent thing, but this is the first one. And we're going to give you so much value. We're going to get some real practical tips that you guys can listen to and then take and execute over the next few months in your recruitment businesses. So look, I don't know who every single one of you are that listens to this show. By turning up on Monday, I'll be able to see who you are, and it'll be a really good experience. We'll be open for Q&A. You can ask your questions. I want to bring this RAG community closer together, and it's starting next week. So Monday, the 20th, 2 p.m. Do not miss it. But let's get back to the show. So without further ado, welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report podcast, my daily bulletin show where I bring to you advisors, recruiters, suppliers across the industry who are giving their take on what's going on across the COVID-19 pandemic and how we as a recruitment industry can get through this stronger. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Gary Cordery. Gary is the regional sales manager for the UK and Ireland for Bullhorn. Someone who I've seen at loads of events, very well networked, and he's on the front line talking to recruitment agencies every single day and understanding how, firstly, they're coping, and secondly, how Bullhorn and himself can offer solutions to try and ease the pain a little bit for their clients. So delighted to get you on. Gary, cheers for taking the time.
Pleasure to be here from my new makeshift office.
Yeah.
Getting used to it.
So I'll start every show with the same question, mate. Let's paint the picture. What is your life like right now?
It's surreal, as I imagine it is for thousands, if not millions of people up and down the country, around the world right now. I'd like to say I'm kind of getting used to it, but I think being so relationship driven as I am, as you are yourself, Sean, and everybody we serve across this industry, the biggest and most painful thing is that lack of true human interaction at the moment. I'm desperate to go and have a coffee or a beer with someone just to see face. But it is what it is, and as long as we're staying healthy, that's the main thing for the time being, I think.
Of course, yeah, of course. You, I've seen your little boy running just before. So what is your setup at home like?
It's not too bad, thankfully. My wife's been absolutely incredible with sort of keeping him out of the way 99% of the time. But obviously, it's out of routine for him as well, and they don't quite understand. He's only 4, soon to be 5. So he'll obviously normally be at first reception year at school. So can't even begin to imagine what's going on in his little mind and why he's spending so much time at home with boring mum and dad. But in the main, it's been okay. But I do feel for some people out there that have more than one at the moment. Yeah. Commitments as well. It must be very difficult.
Well, if you listen carefully, you might hear that my dog is actually going nuts in the corridor right now. So my wife's outside. We've got like a bit of grass on the outside this room I'm in. She's sat in the sun because it's a really nice day today. And the dog is in the corridor with like his toys and his water, just running around doing leaps. So he doesn't know what's going on, but he's he's a right character. I don't know. Honestly, my hat goes off to anyone with kids because I do not know how you could do this. Like, it's hard enough with 2 people trying to work and a dog running around. Never mind kids involved.
Yeah, some people are doing a phenomenal job right now to juggle all the balls they've got up in the air. It's difficult times, but it says so much, doesn't it, about the testament of like the human race, the resolve that we have. And I'm sure we'll talk about this as we go through the interview, but the resolve of the industry has just been arguably the one single biggest positive to take in the last 2 or 3 weeks. That coming together, that they die attitude, it's really been quite impressive to see in places, and long may that continue, because I think we're going to be in it for a few more weeks and potentially months to come yet. So
no, I agree. So let's go back then. So Bullhorn, massive organisation. I imagine there must have been some visibility on what was going on in China and communication coming out from Bullhorn saying, look, we're heading towards something here that could get a bit messy. Did you have any of that kind of murmur of message coming out of head office or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the benefits of being a global business is that we are so sort of connected in so many sort of different geographies across the world. So I guess exposure to market conditions in different geographical regions is always something we're quite on top of. I don't think anyone in their right mind could have predicted quite the scale and extent of what has ultimately become COVID-19, but I think we were as prepared as we could have been. And it's it's a forever moving target, isn't it? In the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, it's almost been this hour by hour, day by day shift in.
Gary, let me just pause you there, mate. My wife, I think, is trying to get in. Any murmurs coming out being a global company?
Bullhorn being a multinational business, we are fairly well connected with networks and markets across many different geographical regions around the world. So I think we've been as prepared as we could have been for something like this.
What was it like January? Did you get any messages out in January, February time, or?
Not so much messages. I think we were obviously monitoring the situation. It was becoming evident that actually it was going to sort of expand outside of China's borders. I've actually got my brother in China as well, so I had a finger on the pulse that really? Way. It was getting sort of fairly frequent. He's actually based in a city called Guangzhou, which I think is the right way to pronounce it. It's about an hour's run from Shanghai. So he's been out there for a couple of years with a business called NES. So I was getting sort of fairly frequent updates from the battlefield, as it were. But yeah, I don't think anyone could have predicted the size and scale of what has followed. But I think Bullhorn was as prepared as it could have been, and has taken sort of many remedial actions to try and weather this storm just like any other business would.
So what when it all really hit the fan, I think it was like between Wednesday and Friday in London just seemed to go crazy. I mean, I was recording a show on the Wednesday night. I did one on the Tuesday, one on the Wednesday. The Tuesday we were like, it seemed a bit quiet in central London. Wednesday guy came in and was like, this could get serious now. Like, we could be. And then Thursday we closed the office, and then it was the day when, like, it came on TV. It's a national emergency. How did it play out in Bullhorn? How did you cope with it straight away?
So internationally, as you know, Sean, we are headquartered on Bishopsgate in the city, and there was actually someone within a business 4 floors down from us in the same building tested positive for coronavirus. I couldn't tell you what date that was off the top of my head, but the decision was made pretty much on the spot. As soon as the building management, let the other companies know that was the case, we shut our offices, and I think the global offices were shut the day following. So we've now been remote. It's got to be over a month, maybe even approaching 5 weeks. And Bullhorn has nearly 10 offices around the world. So quite some feat to shut down them all. But yeah, we've been, as I say, pretty proactive with doing that.
And what was it like being on the front line with your customers? Because you guys have so many clients. I mean, I'm dealing with sort of circa 50 clients. You dealing with thousands as an organization. What was it like for you personally when clients start reaching out?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question to answer, because on the one hand, I've spoken to so many people these past couple of weeks that maybe I was involved in selling Bullhorn to 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's quite humbling that they've reached out to you as, someone they trust, someone who they believe can help, looking for advice, guidance. And I've loved, playing that role and just playing my part in helping wherever we can. But it's alien. It's, you have 8,000 clients around the world, but they vary in nature, from one-man bands through to some of the largest agencies on the planet. And so it's a real mixed bag in terms of what help is being sought in the first place. But I guess one of the real strengths of Bullhorn and the resources that we have at our disposal is things like dedicated account management, so a point of contact for everybody to connect with, to reach out to. We've obviously got a fantastic world-class support team, so all about keeping the lights on, ensuring that this service does what everybody expects it to and has become accustomed to it doing for however long they've been a client of ours. And we've seen no degradation in performance in that respect. So it's kind of very much BAU in terms of the technology offering and what it does for our clients. But yeah, everybody out there is understandably worried, difficult to foresee the future. Even next week seems a lifetime away at the moment. So for a business leader, agency leader, trying to predict what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks, they're worried by that. They're concerned by that. So it's naturally a very alien place for us to be as partners of theirs, trying to find the answers, trying to be as supportive as we can, but not really knowing ourselves what's around the corner.
Yeah, the thing is, you're a little bit like, I look at websites and CRM are the two things that, you kind of need. You can't switch them off really as a recruitment company unless you completely lean on LinkedIn for stuff. Like, you need your database. You need to have it. If anything, you need to invest more time in your database now to ensure it's absolute tip top, and it's not just a living and breathing fridge. It's actually something you use. But I feel like you're in. You to me, you're in that protected bracket where people are not just going to switch it off. So are they more coming to you with how they can evolve payment plans, and what creative things can you guys do to help with the financial burden right now? Is that the main question you're getting asked?
Yeah, it really is a mixed bag. It depends on the sectors that are being served. We're seeing some differences in geography and regions. If you really sort of get under the hood and start to analyse Corona, it's having an impact for sure on a global scale. But the extent of that impact does vary, again, by type of business that you are, whether you're perm, contract, mix of the two, exec search. I think the underlying notion, however, from a Bullhorn standpoint and where remediation in particular is concerned, is that our stance couldn't be clearer. Like, we're absolutely committed to help. Our customers are the lifeblood of our business. Without them, there is no Bullhorn. And that message is probably true of our competitors at this point in time as well. We have to find creative, innovative ways of keeping the lights on, maintaining service, delivering on the promises, the guarantees that our customers ultimately need to run their own businesses, but at the same time being agile enough to help them weather the storm. But again, just to reiterate, we're seeing a completely end-to-end spectrum list of requests coming our way from customers, from wanting to offset licenses, to offsetting payments, to even just asking the question of what might happen in 3 or 4 months if there's no change to the circumstances that we're seeing today. And it's everything in between as well. So a real mixed bag. Yeah.
Is Bullhorn is it 12-month contracts or is it monthly contracts?
Yeah, 12 months.
So it's annual contracts, yeah. So that will drive questions there. So you must have some pretty good data at Bullhorn in terms of knowing what sectors are doing quite well and what aren't. So where would you say, sector-wise, obviously healthcare is got to be pushing. Is there any other sectors that are surprisingly doing well right now, and they're not under as much pressure?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare is absolutely the main one. But there are, distribution companies not too bad at the moment. There are aspects of retail that, are still doing okay and bucking the trend. Sort of groceries and supermarkets still doing obviously very well and on major hiring sprees. I think services for IT companies as well in the main will kind of weather the storm. I guess any company as well that's sort of fairly used to having workers work remotely. Developers, for example, can quite happily sit in a bedroom, can't they, and code and program all day long. And I think it's kind of reflected in some of the financial markets as well at the moment, what you're seeing in terms of businesses that are still kind of performing well and bucking what seems to be the global trend at the moment with so many sectors suffering. There are still quite a few industries seemingly doing okay. So yeah, we continue to analyse it. We continue to look at it on a region by region basis, sector by sector basis.
Is there any countries then or geographies that you say are actually in a much better shape than others right now?
I'm not sure to say they're in a considerably better shape, but we have quite heavy presence across mainland Europe. I think Germany have situation very well. We're still trading quite actively in Germany. That probably kind of no surprise to a lot of people. The Germans doing it the best. Some of the Far Eastern markets that we serve within our APAC teams have already started to show those signs of recovery. I think sort of Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, places like that have done, from the data I've at least been privy to, they've done quite well in containing the pandemic and sort of being in a position to start relaxing some constraints and getting back to some sort of sense of normality. So yeah, from a Bullhorn standpoint, we continue to do quite well out there. Obviously America, such a vast market for us that some parts of it have been more impacted than others, and maybe some of those less impacted areas are due a slight downturn in trade in the weeks and months to come. But yeah, there are still some parts of the world that are bucking that trend, so that's encouraging to see. And I guess the UK, speaking from a UK-centric perspective, it'll be interesting to see where we land in sort of 7 to 10 days when hopefully the peak has passed us by and we've got some sort of handle and grip on the infections. And
hope so. That's all it is, isn't it? It's just a complete, fingers crossed type mindset, I think, at the minute. You can't have much more than that. But one thing I am trying to do is, myself personally, is focus on what I can control every day and just being really, really, I think it's made me more intentional with everything in my life. Everything I'm doing is why am I doing it? Do I need to do it? What am I eating? What am I spending? What am I drinking? Where am I going? Who am I talking to?
Yourself most of the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. What time am I waking up? What time I got to bed? Everything in my life now, it feels way more intentional than it did before. Because there's no going with the flow. There's no I'll just go and hang out with him for a while or whatever. It just doesn't happen. So it's everything's almost, you can plan it quite easily. What that leads into then is my thought process around suppliers like Bullhorn. We've had to be creative. We've had to rip up some of the plans we've done for clients and come up with all sorts of stuff. And do you know what? I've really enjoyed it. I've actually really enjoyed getting under the bonnet of what our clients are trying to do and coming up with some, we ran a campaign. We've done one of our clients. We've done in 2 weeks. We've had over, I think, about 750 attendees, candidates on webinars that are learning about new skills. And they're not going to get around that many people one-on-one, but they're doing it. It's been great how we've done it. One thing I wanted to know about you, how could people use Bullhorn better in a time like this? Because actually, if you have furloughed a lot of people and you're a small team, you've probably got more time than ever to look at shit that you may have been putting back. It's always going to happen one day. Well, maybe today is that one day. So what are you guys encouraging your clients to do to make the best of the situation, get the best out of the system now and in the future?
Yeah, this is definitely been a common sort of conversation across recent weeks, but you're absolutely right. There is probably an opportunity now that people often talk about that one day and never actually get round to doing it. And that opportunity probably has presented itself now, albeit for reasons that are unfortunate. There's a whole host of initiatives, and I'd point any Bullhorn customer actually viewing this interview to start with our website. We've put together a couple of dedicated web pages that are full of resources around free training materials, booking a slot with a solution consultant to have like a bit of an hour's like health check with Bullhorn. So have a kind of more technical presence than the average account manager. Take a look at how the system's configured, maybe make some tweaks and changes to the configuration, ensure that the workflows are set up for optimal use. Things like that, where you can just take the time to kind of take stock and say, well, look, this is how we've always done it. Is it how we need to continue doing it moving forwards? Is this an opportunity to make some changes and actually, trial new processes that could be more efficient for us moving forwards? And there really are a wealth of resources available to our clients during this time that are completely free of charge. So I'd encourage anybody that is using Bullhorn's data to start with a website and talk to their AM as well. Talk to their AM about the services that are available to them, because over the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks, it's kind of the same for us, where net new implementations and projects have obviously subsided ever so slightly compared to what would normally be BAU. So there's resources at our disposal now that are very keen to help, and you can book your slot in with those to. That's
the thing. I think with Bullhorn, I mean, I've been a Bullhorn user in the past, and our recruitment company uses Bullhorn as well, Connects. But I still don't think most people use it anywhere near as much power as it can actually do. So, take stock now, and actually, even without worrying about new features, just how are you actually using what you've already paid for? I bet there's loads that aren't maximising it.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think something that I would just make I would encourage business to consider that for those that are out there on enterprise, we have some very clever patented tech within Bullhorn that's known as Pulse, and this is a relationship analytics engine which looks at all of the communications that you've had with your clients. And at the moment, clients are absolutely integral. I mean, they're always integral, but now more than ever, keeping those clients happy, regularly touching base, broadening the engagement that you have with that client, making sure there's multiple points of contact, no single points of failure. If someone was to, God forbid, be made redundant from your client or furloughed from your client, ensuring that you've got more than one point of contact, and just really sort of penetrating that account as deeply as you can. Pulse provides a whole wealth of analytics in a very automated fashion that I would encourage everybody just to start familiarising themselves with, so that they can really just ensure they're keeping on top of their client interactions and activities as regimentally as possible during this time. But for those as well that may or may not be aware, we've also introduced a new technology to our portfolio recently in the form of Heaped, which was an acquisition back in January. Mm-hmm. Automation tools very much considered to be like the future. This is a great opportunity to look at some of those processes maybe that have been manual, time consuming, costly, and look at how we're doing things. And if when we bounce back and rebound from this unfortunate sort of 2 or 3 months that we've experienced, there is an opportunity for efficiency to drive higher margins, greater productivity. And automation, of course, doesn't care if there's a global pandemic on the go, or where it's raining or shining. Automation just works. And it's a great time for businesses, again, just to take a holistic view of what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they could be more efficient, how that could give them a competitive edge, and make sure that actually when we do rebound, they rebound stronger than the competitors.
Does Hairfish cater for, is it just the bigger clients, or do you offer it out to everyone now?
Pretty much everybody. There is still a threshold of sort of 20 plus users, but that's coming down all the time, and that's just so that we can manage that rollout. Yeah. Make sure that we deliver on the promises that we're making. But yes, more or less available to to the size of business that would require it.
Yeah, makes sense. What's the situation for your brother then? What's going on in China? I mean, I interviewed the guy from Morgan McKinley in China last week, Hong Kong. He's put me in touch with some other people across China and the regions. But what's the story out there for your brother? Are things back to normal as people say?
Not quite. So he has been through a period of quarantine himself, which was pleasant in a hotel. And now the restrictions are lifting. You can't walk into a pub or coffee shop without having your temperature taken and things like that. So and there's some very clever tech that is being leveraged in China. Some might say a bit intrusive, but just depends on your personal view, I guess. That is helping to.
What does he do?
It's a ways of, I think it's the police are using it. So it's a means of kind of checking your temperature from 2 meters apart.
Really?
I've seen some articles about it. Very, very clever stuff. It's almost without
What if you're just hot? What if you're just sweaty and you've been for a run? You're over a certain temperature. You're screwed then.
You get banged up, I think. Yeah. Not entirely sure, but
that's the thing about, like, you know, how everyone. If you're modelling the bounce back on China, I don't think we'll ever react in terms of conforming to regimen like China. So the faster they went into lockdown and all the rules and pulling people out of houses if they were over a certain temperature, and we're not doing any of those things, so we can't expect to move out of it the same pace. I don't think. That's just my
opinion. And people will have their, you know, their opinions on that. It will become very, very political. But yeah, I agree.
What do you think is going to happen to recruiters at the end of this? Like, once this does turn, how do you think the industry will change?
This industry I've serviced for 5 years, so I was fortunate enough to find Bullhorn, and I've loved my time at Bullhorn ever since. And it's been such a refreshing industry to serve that I guess I've become one of those that would put yourself in the bracket of being very passionate about the industry. But what I do know about this industry, that whilst it's sometimes the hardest hit in terms of, you know, recession, downturn in the economy, it's also one of the bounce back. We are also blessed with, you know, talking from a technologist perspective, I'm not just referring to Bullhorn here, but just technology in general. If you look at even Bullhorn's marketplace and the technologies that are in that ecosystem, there's some very clever tools out there that can help, you know, businesses to be more efficient and more productive with less heads. When I came into the industry 5 years ago, a business would only ever measure growth in terms of headcount.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, we're going to have this many people next year, this many people the year after, and that's the only measurement we ever had. Now businesses are turning their attention to more how do they increase EBITDA, how do they increase margin per placement, how do they achieve the same levels, arguably with one or two people less at their disposal, so that, you know, they're just maximizing their investments in technology. And these are all strategic considerations for businesses to start thinking about. And that's why I just think we will see a great rebound. And the fundamental dynamics of this industry are not changing either. This is a short-term, significant pain for a lot of businesses, but we will come through it. And arguably, or you would hope, maybe we're even in the eye of the storm already. Again, this comes back to the opening gambits we were talking about. The big concern, or the big question mark, is the how long. Is it a few weeks? Is it a few months? Is it, God forbid, anything longer? But if it's one of the two former projections there, then for many businesses, they will pull through, they will make it, and they'll come out the other side stronger for it, with an opportunity to look at the way they've done things and, you know, work out ways of doing that better.
No, I agree. I think your technology as well, cloud-based, app-based, you know, it gives people the opportunity to do what they're doing wherever they are. And if you think going back to 2001 with 9/11 and then 2008, things weren't anywhere near the level then. I mean, 2008, I wasn't even a recruiter, I was a teacher back then. But when I first I got into recruitment in Australia for Randstad, and they had the old Bond Adapt when I first started. It was like black green screen shit, and it was actually really fast, but it was literally like, you know,
and sit on the fence, mate.
Yeah, like you had it in 1992 at school, and then we built our own system called Mfront, which was a purpose-built CRM that Randstad made in Asia Pac. And then when I joined Venquist, they were on Bullhorn. I couldn't believe Bullhorn was just like, it was on an app. It wasn't like a desktop app. You could log in wherever you want. The pace of it, now it seems normal. But if you think about how much this would have hurt people back then, like, there was no laptops. People didn't have cloud-based technology. They didn't have video conferencing. Like, we are lucky in a way that the industry can sit here like this and have conversations face-to-face and, you know, make placements, do everything without being physical. We've got to think we're lucky for that right now, and you know, the technology's there to mean that we can get through this much better than we could have in any other period before.
A business really close to my heart is down in Bristol, Precision Resource Group, run by a chap, Tom Hibbert and Mark Lloyd. And I was actually on a call with Mark not so long ago, and hopefully he won't mind me mentioning his name on this call. But Mark actually mentioned to me that if we was on our old setup, PRG would have faced some serious issues. And they've obviously moved to cloud. They've got their email in the cloud. They're leveraging tool sets like Volcanic and Sourcebreaker, all integrated with Bullhorn. It's allowed them to make that shift to home working, you know, that far more easy to to transition. I mean, yes, it still had its challenges from a cultural perspective and with specific individuals, but they have lifted and shifted their working practices from the office to home with minimal fuss. And to your point, a couple of years ago, just on-premise server technology, to do something almost overnight as well. It's not like, again, anybody had the chance to prepare for this and to put the supporting technology in place to allow everybody to remote onto that desktop from home. It would have been an absolute nightmare of a project to facilitate whilst on, and just to hear him pass on his thanks for everything kind of Bullhorn has given him in that regard. That was a real humbling moment, and it was just a real pleasure to kind of hear that they've been able to do that with relative ease. And I've just got to manage the people.
Well, I'm the one thing I'm excited about is, I think for all of us, it's made us take stock of how we work, what tools we're using, what we do, and is it going to, if we carry on as we were, are we going to get through this? Probably not. So we're going to have to pivot, like you say, working from home, all these things, and then it's going to be like, how do I want to be on the other side? Like, do I want to go backward to where I was, or do I want to stay where I am in terms of remote, or do I want to blend it? And there's so much creativity going to be coming off this. Like, people are going to be like, I know what I'm like. I'm constantly thinking about how I can evolve the model now, because, and this was always in the background for people, but it's just been dragged to the foreground. So it's going to be, when we get to the next TRN huddle or whatever in 2022, it'll be cool to see, like, how does your business look today, and how have one thing that'll be there is the likes of Bullhorn. No doubt, you guys you'll be stapled to the client base. Hopefully, the likes of Hoxo and what we're doing will be. But there'll be a lot of things that change, a hell of a lot of things that change.
And this will be a period that I'm convinced that so many of our clients and just businesses generally will refer back to and say, look at how we did things pre-corona. Do you remember COVID-19 pandemic that made us think about how we were engaging our candidates, or how we were running all these manual processes across the business that led us to change all of that for the better and automate some stuff that we always said we was going to, but just never got round to doing, or whatever it might end up being. It's going to drive change for sure. And hopefully most of that change will be improvement, and it will bring positive results. It's only time will tell, but I share your view. I think there's a lot of it that we'll see, and that's the positive, I guess, to share with the industry, that when we get a bit of breathing space, there's so much tools, people, resources out there to help us. Services like this, the podcasts and TRN that you've mentioned, these great affiliates of ours that offer so much advice, guidance, industry knowledge, expertise, people that have, to your early point as well, 2008, weathered that recession, 9/11, weathered the impact that had around the world. And there's lots of people out there so willing to give their time, their expertise. I think it's just a case of get out there and try and consume it. And when we get through this spell, so much opportunity will come off the back of it. I'm very convinced by that. And I think we'll see a lot of positive change. Definitely. That's the exciting part of
you got to try and be positive. You got to try and put a spin on it. Well, Gary, look, thanks so much, mate, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
No worries. If anyone wants to reach out, ask you any questions, if it reminds people that you were the AM that sold, or the sales guy from Bullhorn that they forgot to ring, you're open to a conversation with anyone, yeah? Give them some advice. Yeah,
and you know what? To all of those guys that I have been involved with selling Bullhorn to over the years, huge thanks. Like customers, like I said earlier on, no business survives without its customer base. You are paramount to everything we do, and a big heartfelt thanks from me personally to all of those guys and our customers around the world just generally. Yeah. But happy to reach out. LinkedIn, email is simply gcordery@bullhorn.com. Happy to hear from anyone really, and touch base if you're experiencing any hardship and need additional support. Reach out. We're all committed to helping. So don't hesitate to say hello and come and help.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. Thanks so much. Guys, I hope you enjoyed listening to today's show. I will be back again tomorrow with another update from another leader or advisor and recruitment owner in the sector. Remember, Monday to Saturday, we are releasing every morning. I'll let you into a secret. We upload the night before, and my editor every single night gives me a kick. About 8:15, he goes, "Where's the copy? Where's this? Where's that?" Every night, I feel like I've done my job for the day, and then literally without fail. So he's put an automated reminder in my. So if it's ever late in the morning, if you ever get up and go on your commute or you run, no commute, and it's not there, it's my fault, not his fault, because I've missed it. But Monday to Saturday.
There you go. The benefits of automation, right there.
That's it. And if one thing I ask from all the listeners is share this show with somebody else. So I don't ask for any money to listen, but I do ask for one thing, and it's share. Give it to a friend, a colleague, a boss, even a competitor, someone who could benefit from listening to Gary and all these other people that I'm bringing in. Because together the industry will survive, will be a lot stronger. So I'll see you again tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe and take care.